Hello friends, and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now, last week there was no video, and that's because I fell down the rabbit hole of, well, what you can see around me right now. The Productive Bees mod. Now, I tried to give it a chance, and I spent a lot of time with it, but it's kind of fidgety, and I didn't really love it. It's basically an upgraded version of the Forestry Mods Bees edition, which some of you may be familiar with. It's been around for a really, really long time, but honestly, it just really didn't scratch the itch for me. So I spent a lot of time fidgeting and learning about gene splicing and all this weird stuff. And aside from setting up some generation to maybe get some blaze rods out of this whole setup, overall it just wasn't really a good use of my time. So it wasn't a very good, exciting episode. It wasn't really the sort of experience that I wanted. And quite frankly, I didn't really finish. I didn't get far enough into the bee breeding to really get anything useful out of it. So we're not doing bees today, and we're not going to talk about bees. We're going to completely ignore bees from here on out if we can possibly avoid it. Now, I have done a couple of other things since the last episode that you all got to see, which included expanding my base. So I've doubled the size of this building that we were using for all of our storage, which is all contained here. So as our needs are increasing, we're increasing the amount of space we've got. I went and explored some of the first Sky Islands as well and picked up a little bit of loot. You can see here how much I've explored now. 2 of the Sky Islands I've found already, and a 3rd Sky Island that seems to be all about Hexarray, which I haven't explored at all. So we just looked at that a little bit, but there was no loot. Didn't really get much out of it, although there was some neat little apiaries. But again, we're not talking about bees, so we're not going to go there. But this second island that I've just found off to the side is really kind of incredible. It looks like there's a whole bunch of apiaries that have been set up here to raise bees. So somebody was already working on the quest that we were trying to work on, I guess, and they've done a really good job. They've got all sorts of bees in here, and it looks like these hives are all full of honey, full of bees. So that's kind of neat. Just trying to check out what these other rooms are all about. An altar, so it looks like this is Hexarray stuff, which I haven't even dipped my toes into yet. Maybe this whole island is witchy stuff? Who knows? So that extra loot may allow us to skip over some things in this mod pack. But the thing I wanted to do today is pick up where we left off with our Enigmatica playthrough. So to pick back up where we left off in the Enigmatica series that I was recording, I want to start building out that main bus again that I was starting to create. Having these long streams of conveyor belts that are bringing our various items all over the place that we can then use. Most people have been doing like hyper efficient, really condensed systems of how they're building stuff out, particularly in skyblock. And I figure, why go with tradition? Let's completely buck the usual system and spread out and really expand our footprint so that we can have all of this resource generation, resource mixing, and really build little mini factories that do lots of little things. So let's dive in and start building some. Okay, I have been all over the nether looking for blazes, but no blazes are spawning anywhere in those Sky Islands. And I need blazes to fill my empty blaze burners so I can build a boiler to generate steam, to generate power for my create setup. Now, the only way I can think of to do this, and I've Googled around on the forums a little bit to figure this out, is that if I can make some GM chicken feed cursed, I can then make this dreadful dirt. And if I put the dreadful dirt into the nether, it should spawn blazes along with a whole lot of other nasties. So yeah, we'll use this rotten egg that the chicken should lay. And to make the cursed chicken feed is not especially hard, but we do need essence buckets or XP buckets of some sort. And to get that, we need to get liquid experience. Now, there is this mod called Experience Obelisk, and I think that that might be the easiest way to get it. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but all of these ingredients are pretty common. So we're going to try and make one real quick and see if this does the trick. So, okay, we have an Experience Obelisk, and it looks like that also completed a quest from Gadgets and Gizmos. Yes, so it looks like this can store it. And in theory, we should be able to get fluid experience, liquid experience back out of this somehow. Now, I don't know if it takes power. Let's go and put it down and see what happens. Okay. 10 levels? Let's try and do that. And then in theory, maybe I can get this back out. Ah, there we go. So if we use pipes, it seems to suck our experience out of our obelisk and into our tank. And it looks like we're getting plenty for our purposes. Now we need 4 of those buckets. So we do need to make 2 more buckets. And then we should be able to just, yeah, have a whole bunch of buckets of cognitum. Okay, so in theory, that is all of the ingredients, and there is our chicken feed. And then we should be able to feed this to one of our chickens to get the cursed earth, or whatever they call it, the dreadful dirt, I guess. How about you? Oof. Okay, yes, that gave us a rotten egg, but I feel for my chickens. They suffered there. Hey, shulker shell. Where did that come from? Who laid that? Okay, I don't know where that came from, but that's good to have. I don't know why the item vacuum is sucking that thing up, but we'll save that for later. Now I conveniently picked up exactly 4 feathers, which is great because I need to also make an angel block. And the reason why we want to make an angel block is we don't want to put this dirt down right next to our spawn, right? That would be somewhat problematic because every time we'd walk through this door, we'd get attacked. That's not what we want. So instead, I'm going to put this out a little bit further from here. I mean, here's on our map where we've been exploring, and again, no blazes in any of these spots, but I think I'll just go out a little bit this way, just into the air. And again, I've got my handy dandy jetpack, so it's not really a problem. And we'll just put an angel block down, just like that. Easy enough. So that's far enough away that in theory, we won't get attacked too badly. And then we lay down a layer of dirt on top of that cobblestone. That's just in case anything explodes. So let's try this. Woo! Yeah, immediately, a whole bunch of folks. So let's grab that blaze. Hopefully some of the rest of these will just fall off and we can spawn some other things. Oof. You know, I should have built a proper farm here. This is less than ideal. So this seems the easiest way to just pick these up, is just wait for everybody to push each other off the platform and just kind of hover over top. Generally speaking, you can catch the blazes before they shoot you, and aside from getting arrowed by these guys, you're generally pretty safe up here. They just keep pushing each other off the platform. Okay, and there we go. Now we have 9 blaze burners, but I did notice that our portal has become overrun, unfortunately. Not really a safe place to be anymore. We're going to have to figure out a better way to protect these areas. Okay, so the first thing we're really going to need and create is to have some brass. Most of the things that we're going to be making for sorting and whatnot, our funnels and our arms and all that stuff, we need brass. So we have lots of copper, we have a lot of zinc, but we do need to create a mixer and power this up. Okay, so this is going to be where we're going to build our initial factory. Now, the first piece is to create the sifting generators. So basically, as we've learned in this mod pack, sifting, using these sifters is the way that we get resources. So we're going to set up at least 1 to start and probably grow that over time so we can increase our overall production. Now, we're going to build a room for that and a little building. This is the same pattern I used in that Enigmatica 9 series, so that each stop along this path in our main bus we're going to create is going to be some sort of a processing of that item, and things will continue to flow all the way down the route. Whoa! Okay, I had a skeleton horse that appeared on the edge of my island here, and it got struck by lightning just now, and it turned into a whole army of these skeleton horseman skeletons. Now I have a crow too? What's going on? This is weird and scary. Okay, that's fine. We will do what we have to. Okay, maybe I can save the horse? I wonder. Why don't you come with me? Although I don't know what we feed skeleton horses. Is it, it's not still apples, I assume, right? It's got to be something like bones or something, or meats. I tell you what, until I figure out what to do with you, we're just going to tie you up here. You just hang out. Now for power generation, I think that everything is going to run off of some sort of a drive shaft that I'm going to run all the way down this length along with our belts. And so I think the power generation is going to need to come off this side. So this building can continue to expand probably in that direction, dropping items and adding them to some sort of belt that's coming out on the front here. Okay, so here is our setup. I think it works pretty well, but we do have some glitches to work out. So we've got this building, which is basically just our sifter. Right now, there's only one sifter in here because, as you can see, I've got some throughput jankiness that I need to resolve. And that's just dropping into a smart chute so we can drop, in theory, as many items as we want at a time. But even with our belts going super fast, they're still clogging up here at this filter, and I'm not sure why. There's nothing in there, but that's what they do. Now, this filter is the example of splitting things off of the main bus that I mentioned before. This right here is going to be pulling the coal off into this area, and I'm actually kind of cheating a little bit here. Rather than using chutes, I'm using item pipes from pipes to insert into a compacting drawer. That is going to then be producing our blocks of coal, which will feed into our blaze burner. Now, this, of course, is the center of our power generation. Now, right now, I'm just using a single boiler, and that's being fed from an aqueous accumulator here and some pipes. Again, not the create native way to do this, but that's giving me plenty of water in here. And I could add more of these boilers off to the side if I want. I've got plenty of space to expand, but for right now, I think this is good. In the future, though, the easiest way to do this is probably to use an electric motor. Since I do have wireless power and more power than I know what to do with, this is going to be the preferred way of doing it. I power the electricity here, and that causes all of the gears to turn everywhere that I need. And of course, I could use these separately across each individual location, each building where I'm doing processing. Instead, for right now, though, I have these encased shafts running the length of this area, and that's transmitting our power to the various places that are going to need it. I kind of like this approach of having this sort of central power line of just shafts so that you can insert power into your buildings externally. I just think it's a neat way to solve for this. So since this is a gravel sifter, I will pick up flint that I don't really want to do anything with. I'm just going to discard. But I'm right now piping that instead into a functional storage drawer with a void upgrade. So this will never clog up the rest of my system. But this is just my little pedestal sitting here, making my gravel, and the flint gets dumped in here. So in a nutshell, that's how all of these things fit together. So industrial foregoing also gives us conveyor belts. Now, we don't have plastic production happening. I'm going to have to set up some sort of a tree farm or something to start getting plastic up, but that's going to be relatively easy for us to do. And once we have that, we can start using the conveyor belts. So that's going to provide us very cheap filters and splitters that I think is going to be a better way to go about dealing with this without so much hang up. And you can also move larger quantities of items that way. Right now, all of the items are just going into a barrel. They're not being sorted, nothing fancy is happening with them. So the idea would be to filter out the items that are not going to be used in this production line back to our main storage facility, and then peel off the items that we do want to use into the areas where we're processing them. Now, I want to do more than just the basic processing here, like baking our copper down into copper ingots. Instead, I also want to make sure that I'm splitting parts of it off so I can make the secondary types of ingredients that I need, mixing them up. So, for instance, making my brass, making bronze, all of those other sort of things where I have to blend things together. There's all these alloys in this pack. There's Invar, there's Constantin, there's bronze, there's brass, there's all of these things that I want to blend these up to start making these other ingredients. But you can't actually make most of those in the mixer the same way that you can with our brass. Unfortunately, that just doesn't work. So we are going to have to use some of these other mods to be able to get to that. So for instance, the Invar blend, that's going to need some sort of auto crafting. We can't do that directly. Maybe the induction smelter is going to be the easiest way to do it. We'll figure something out there, but we are going to want to split off our various ingredients so that we can start making all of those things. So for our next round of ore processing, we are going to need some crushing wheels because that's how we get our various raw materials down, crushed into powders and dusts that we can then smelt. So our crushing wheels are how we do that. And unfortunately, that means we need to use the mechanical crafter. This is kind of obnoxious to set up. So I went ahead and made a bunch of these. I had enough brass casings for it, and I've just connected up to our main power here. So we're going to see if we can remember how this works. It has been a second. I think I just need to put these items into the various boxes, and in theory, it should just start working. Yeah, there we go. Slowly but surely building up our machine. And there we go. 2 crushing wheels. I think I have enough ingredients to make a few more, so let's see if I can't make a few more of these. And there we have all of our crushing wheels. 6 of those for now should be a good start for most of the things we're going to want to make. And I also stopped by the Nether to pick up some more blazes for these blaze burners because I know I'm going to be doing some mixing to create alloys. So that's definitely going to be something we need as well. Okay, so here we have our mostly complete main bus. Let's talk through how all of this works. So our main room here is what's doing all of our sifting of gravel and producing all of these resources, slowly but surely. There's a little bit of lag as those resources then get filtered through our series of brass tunnels. Here, this one's filtering the coal out so that it can run our boiler. Then the second set here is filtering just our iron out. So iron is going in here and making iron ingots that get flowed all the way down to the end there and stored. This next set pulls copper. The third set pulls our zinc. And then this last half-finished building, I left half-finished because I want to show you all how it works, is what's making our brass ingots. Now the system here isn't very complicated. I did not use the extendable version that I put in my Enigmatica 9 build. So instead, I've just got a set of grinder wheels dumping it down onto a belt, and there is of course a mechanical fan that is blowing our hot air through the lava and smelting down those ingots. And that's exactly the same for each of these 3. So of course the system clogs pretty badly if you get things in here that should not actually be on the belt, and that can be problematic. But so far this generally seems to be working, aside from my magnet, which is screwing everything up here. But otherwise it works pretty well. So we have one belt going in and another belt going out, and generally we're replacing the same spot in the line for the output here. So you can see those iron ingots zipping down into our storage container all the way down here. Obviously this could go to a different storage facility, whatever. And anything that we're not peeling off to actually smelt just goes straight into the trash. So we're just dumping these resources. Again, you could do something more complicated and move these into their actual storage locations, but for now this is working for me. So since this is a sushi belt in the way that resources are being produced, to peel things off, we have to have the main belts go up and over. Now this could be resolved by actually pushing the main belts to the opposite side here instead, but you'd still have to do some up and over to get resources out. I found this to be kind of the most elegant and easy way to do this. So our copper is being peeled off here and the iron just zips up and over it. The zinc is being peeled off here and the iron just zips up and over it. And so does the copper at the second stage. Now over here, what we've done, we're just using all of the copper and all of the zinc directly. We're just putting all of it directly into this line. Now, since the copper is coming off 1 ingot at a time currently, that does mean that things are getting a little backed up. I think through the use of some sort of a smart chute or otherwise, I could turn these into stacks and this would clean up. So this is going to start backing up at some point. So we do need to keep that in mind. But otherwise, it's working pretty good. Now let's talk about our brass production. This makes it kind of hard to see what's going on. So I have an exploded view here without the walls and sides on it. Basically, we have these two depots at the end of our conveyor belts here. And those are our collectors for our copper and our zinc. These mechanical arms underneath target the depots on top of them. And thankfully, mechanical arms can reach underneath as well as on top or aside things. So just being in proximity of these depots, they can still reach items on top of them. They then are inserting each of their respective items, copper and zinc, into this basin, which then gets mixed down into brass. The brass gets pushed out this side here onto this depot. Now underneath we have a depot that just collects coal, and that coal gets fed to this blaze burner by this mechanical arm. And you can see here that we use an ender drawer that connects to our main storage for coal, so that we have basically limitless coal here to feed that blaze burner. I could have done something more complicated like I did before to make blocks of coal, but this is totally fine. The difference in how much time it's going to burn is not really a big deal at this stage. So then the last arm here picks up from this final depot where the output of the brass comes down after being mixed and puts it onto the belt that is just above it. Again, it can place above it as well as under it, and you can see that happening right there. Then this gets shot down the belt and into our brass storage container. The one thing I really like about this is the method that I used to control all of these with local power. Rather than using my main belt line to control each individual facility, I can turn the facilities on and off with switches attached to a clutch outside. So just by clicking that, all of the belts inside of the facility will stop, all of the resource production will stop, and it will limit my stress units. And I can just click the switch, turn it back on, and everything goes back to normal. Every single one of these buildings has that cutoff switch. And of course, these are just powered by shafts that are enclosed underneath here. The brass encased shaft here is my main power line. I have a gearbox where it's splitting off to each of the buildings, and then andesite enclosed shafts all the way down to each building, so I can kind of tell what goes where, my main power versus my secondary power. Again, this would be much more efficient if I used the motors to use our power to convert into rotational energy. So what's the verdict on this? This is a lot of belts to manage. I gotta admit, that's the hardest part and most frustrating part of this. Because of the way that Create belts want to connect to each other when they're next to each other, and when you're trying to pack things into tighter quarters like this, it's not really fun. It's not really that easy. I still love this pattern, and I think that replacing this with the industrial foregoing belts will be a major upgrade for how we have to do belt management. But for right now, this looks really cool. I kind of like having the different items flowing between these different buildings that have a single purpose. I think that works kind of well. Now, I don't think that this is the way we're going to do for everything here. I started off this, as I mentioned before, with my Enigmatica 9 playthrough, which was cut short due to some technical issues. And I don't know that this is going to work for all of our resources. It's just not very efficient, and we're really not getting much return on investment from our various resources that are being produced. We can do a lot more with mechanisms and some of the other mods to increase our ore production. So this might not really be the way to go here. But we are going to have to do something like this for brass production, because this is the only way to get brass. We need brass for pretty much everything that we're going to be doing and create in the future. So we're going to have to come up with some sort of solution here. I think what we might do is break this down and build a brass production room just in a compact machine. We certainly can build those relatively easily. I think we have just about everything we need. We have a pretty big source of nether right now. We have all of these other things that diamond. So I think maybe what we do is we make our compact machine and stick all of the brass production in there. So we have a single purpose machine that all it does is produce brass from copper and zinc. That might be a really good way to solve this. So although this method of getting resources moved around is not the most efficient, I really like the look of it. I think it's really neat. I don't think it's going to scale well once we have too many more types of resources to manage, so I might have to split out separate belts, separate buses, instead of having the entire main bus sort of system that I envisioned in my previous playthrough of Enigmatica 9. I think it's just going to be too wide, or I'll have to start stacking belts. It's just going to be burdensome to manage. So I do think having a localized bus like this works pretty nicely, and it's kind of cool looking, but is not the most efficient necessarily. So the one big thing left to do is to check off all of our quests that we have completed. We've done smart shoots, we've done regular shoots, we have done mechanical presses. I thought we did saws, but I guess we didn't do saws. Mechanical mixers, we've done blaze burners, and that gives us our blaze cake as well. Brass funnels, and that gives us some filters. Brass ingots. Yeah, there we go. That's most everything from Create, except for a few remaining little bits and bobs. So I'll probably finish this out between gaming sessions just because none of these are really especially difficult, and we're not actually going to use any of these things for anything at this particular stage, just to get this checked off our list. And that of course brings us to yet another end of another episode of Enterprise Architecture. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye friends.